Boy, the Hoosiers put the Nittany Lions to the test on Saturday, but in the end come up just short, 33-24, but a game that was tied at 24 with just about 3 minutes to go. A fantastic effort, but a couple tough moments in the upset bid. Still plenty of encouraging signs in this one as we welcome you back to another episode of Under the Hood with IU Football, presented by your Central Indiana Ford dealers, a proud sponsor of IU Football. Visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today. Hey, man, this was a fun one for my buddy Don Fisher and I up in the booth there at Penn State, and we loved some of the excitement this team brought us. Perhaps none more apparent, with those encouraging signs and explosive plays, defense playing inspired ball, and you minimize some of those mistakes going forward. And there is not a game left on this schedule that is not winnable for this team in order to have an opportunity to play a 13th game this season. But that starts with Wisconsin this Saturday, and that is all that our next guest is focused on here and getting ready for this week as we welcome back Indiana offensive coordinator Rod Carey, making a second appearance here for us on Under the Hood. Coach, appreciate you being back here with us. Always glad to chat a little football with you.
I'm honored. I didn't think I'd ever get an invite after the first one, so another one. So I like it.
Yeah, well, you're the first return guest, so that does say something. Look, I just want to.
You're going to make me blush.
Oh, well, come on. I want to hit on something here first because it was one of the main things that I took away from our first conversation. Small changes lead to bigger improvement down the line and over time. And look, I know results are all that matters in this business, and ultimately the only result that matters is wins and losses. So we understand that, but are we starting to see some of those small changes turn into bigger improvements?
I hope so. I mean, That's the short answer is I hope so. It's all below the line, right? When you don't win, it's all below the line, but there is still growth that has to happen to get above the line. And so I hope, now we got to go do it again. And now we got to cross the finish line. So, yeah.
So let's start right there with a couple of plays that put you in a good position to do it. Man, those two explosives in the first half had us going crazy up in the booth. I mean, seeing that happen, seeing a crowd of 100,000 just go silent is an amazing feeling. I'm sure it was, for you too there. Let's start with the fact that the first one, I was like, man, that's a really good throw by Sorsby. I go back and watch it after the game. I'm like, holy smokes. He threw that thing in between two defensive linemen, stepping up in the pocket, almost on the move. And the fact that thing was a dime down to DQ, and then we'll get to DQ's part of it. But, man, that's what you love to see from your quarterback, right?
Yeah, well, and it's proper quarterback mechanics, right? I mean, you're stepping up, not fading away, and, you're doing the things that you need to be doing. So, no, that was really, Brennan gets all the credit in the world on that one. That was really good.
Well, and obviously it looked like he was setting up as almost like a little kind of bait and switch there with the wideouts, kind of baiting him off the line a little bit and then going. And man, DQ's the fact that he was able to stay on his feet because that ball takes his hands out over his knees there. I thought he was going to tumble.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean, the one who really made DQ gets the line credit, but Omar Cooper,
blocking
the first block, and then the second little push that ended up, getting DQ an opportunity to tightrope the sideline for the last 5 yards. So, I mean, that he played the whole play too was great.
Yeah, it was awesome to see. And then obviously he gets rewarded for it later. We'll get to that here in a second, getting himself into the end zone on a laser from Brennan Sorsby. But going back to the second one, is that something where you guys had an idea that was coming, or did Brendan and Donovan just see it and say, hey, let's go score? I got nobody on me out here.
Well, I mean, we had an RPO called.
Yeah.
But there was nobody on. So no matter what play design is there, it is just throw it to him. So that was great recognition by Sorsby. And really, those are sometimes the hardest ones to catch, man, when you're wide.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, you would know better than me, right?
Well, shoot, man. I didn't have a ton of those opportunities, but yeah, I get it. I mean, the whole crowd, the whole stadium's watching you, and there's nobody around you. Yeah, so good concentration by Donovan, and then glad he did not get caught from behind on that one. He had to score.
Hey, I haven't given Dono a hard time about it yet, but on film, man, the 2-ton elephant jumped on his back about the 10-yard line. He was out of gas.
It did look like.
Another
But
5 yards, I don't know. Might have been touchy, but it was good to see him get in the end zone. He deserved
Man, it was awesome. It was awesome. And so, I think, obviously you love those plays, right? You love that read and recognition. You love the ability to make a throw, like that first one on the money where you had to have it in an environment like that. But then obviously there's still those growth moments, right? For a young quarterback in Brendan. Like I felt like a couple of those throws on those first two drives, that ended up in punts that could have had, right?
Yeah, well,
those are the easier ones.
Yeah, should have. And that's what I told him. Maybe some early game jitters.
Yeah, sure.
He's such a pretty even keeled kid, and that I didn't get that sense, but certainly, it was early game jitters.
And then, I was talking to Don as you guys have the ball at the end of the first half, right? It's like, man, just the only thing that matters here is we end the half with the ball, right? We end the half with the football. And I know that one hurts, obviously, and no one's probably more critical about it than Brendan himself. But what do you tell him on a play like that where he's, obviously he's got that playmaker gene, wants to make those plays, but just to kind of walk that fine line with balancing what's right?
So two things to that. One, that is a young guy who's used to being able to do that in high school.
Yes.
Okay. So there is some muscle memory there that his body tells him he can. And we're at a different level and we have to make different muscle memory. So I had to leave him alone for a second because I was not real happy. I did not get on the phone right away. And I think he wanted the space too. But then when I did get on the phone with him, he just said, he just goes, yeah, coach, I'm mad, so you don't got to say it. I said, well, I'm going to say it anyways so that we don't do it again. And I said it. And then I go, now it's over, flush it, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, clearly did, because the second half, I mean, those two drives to start the second half were terrific, Coach. And then, what was working there? It felt like you had a real nice mix of that run game, some of the power run game we'll get to with Trent Howland. But what did you feel like was really starting to click in that second half?
Well, Coach Bostad, had done a great adjustment. We talked about a great adjustment at halftime. He had brought a couple things to me and said, hey, I want to flip some things.
Yep.
And with our scheme. And so really good adjustment by him. And we came out and because of how they were defending us in the first half, and we did. And so we got the run game going. And I know you can't take away the sack yardage. It's just the way it's go. But when you do that, we averaged 4 yards a carry versus that defense, and that's efficient running. That's what it needed to be. And certainly that gave us the ability to stay on track. Like we were going to be aggressive to stay on track this week, and we did. With that, and the run game certainly helped.
Yeah, and just lastly on Brendan here, because I mentioned the playmaker gene. I think we saw that on the unfortunate fourth down where the snap goes by him, right? And he's able to pick that thing up on the run, and he turns that thing into what we all thought was a first down at the end with Trent. I mean, just an inch, on the elbow. Take me through your range of emotions as that play's going off.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what had happened. So Coach said, go for it. And I called a play, and then I hated the play call. So I said, Coach, can I have a timeout? And the specific play call that we called was a go fast, right? Yeah. It was, we're going to get up there and snap it as fast as we can. So I said, right after I spit the play call out, I go, Coach, I need a timeout. Just call a timeout. He's right by the refs. And right as he's going for timeout, Carp thought he heard a clap and snapped it over Sorsby's head. So you talk about range of emotion. Like, no, this is a bad play call. Call timeout. Oh, no. Oh, good job, Sorsby. Oh, we got the first down. That's about how it went. And then the review. And then,
you're like,
you're like, what are you talking about? And then I looked at the review and I'm like, that's really close to overturn, but they did.
I thought it was really close. I thought, if it was fourth down, if it was turnover on downs on the field, they'd have kept it. But I was surprised that they were able to overturn that. But so it goes, and that was tough, obviously. But talking a little bit about Trent Howland, because we saw what he could do there. Not only in the run game, but in get the ball in his hands on a throw and let him go make a play, which he tried to do there. Man, Coach, it just feels like, for Trent now, it's more so than just, he's earning a couple of opportunities. It feels like he's becoming a weapon with the way that he's playing.
So young guys, and this is where Trent is at. So you want to always be cautious when you talk like this as a coach.
Yeah.
Young guys, when it starts to turn, the corner starts to turn like it did for you in your career, for me in my career, the corner starts to turn. Usually it's a pretty sharp corner that you turn as a player. It's a long straightaway, and then all of a sudden you turn the corner, and he's in that corner right now. So you got to keep doing it, because I think the game's going to start to slow down to him. And when that happens, that's the final piece, right? When the game slows down for you as a player, now you've turned the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that in mind, on the flip side, and this is not meant to be negative, but it feels like, Jalen Lucas has had a harder time, right? Yeah. Finding his way in the last few games and finding his, path to contributing and being a weapon for this team. How do you kind of rekindle some of that juice that he can bring?
Yeah. I mean, that is, we just got out of a staff meeting. We just spent, a long time talking about it, is that, no, we have to continue to do those things to put him in a position to be successful. And we have to keep calling those things. Now, on the flip side of that, and this is a compliment to Jalen Lucas. And I know it's hard when you're not getting the touches, you're not having the success that you want to do, to take this as a compliment, but the defense is also trying to take those away.
Better believe it.
So he's doing his part for the offense. He just wants to be doing more. And that's our job, to create that space for him. And we're going to keep doing that, obviously.
No question. So the first half, obviously, defense is on the field a ton, right? Yeah. They get a ton of extra snaps. Not all that is the offense is doing, right? I mean, obviously had the unfortunate punt muff there, and sets up the defense with 8 extra reps. And, I know the interception at the end of the half put a few extra reps on them. How much of that is in your mind as you're trying to figure out the attack plan in the second half?
Well, that was probably at the forefront. I mean, I think we had 22 plays in the first half. Now, good news, we scored 14 points. Bad news, the defense had, I think, 40 some.
Yeah, well, it was up there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was up there. So we knew and we were down 17-14 and a half, but we knew no matter what happened after that first drive, and they went down and scored, that we had to. It was like deja vu from Rutgers, and we went 3 and out in that situation, Rutgers. And this time we knew that we had to get this first down. We had to get the clock moving. That was priority one for, protecting and trying to control the game. And we drove down and we missed a field goal, which was ultimately, not good enough. But we did take some time off the clock and rested up the defense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And then obviously you get the touchdown on the next drive. Yeah. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the toughness, of this team, kind of personified a little bit in what Brendan Sorsby showed you on a 2-play stretch right there, where he, runs over a corner and Johnny Dixon, and both of them get up like, dang, that hurt a little bit, right? Yeah. With the shoulder. I think both, if Brendan didn't have to go back in the game, he might have come off and gotten a little bit of attention there, but he has to go back in, and he throws a flipping strike right there to Omar Cooper, which was, just such an exhilarating play to see, capitalizing on a red zone opportunity there. But what does that tell you about a young player's, confidence, toughness, ability to get back in there, shake one off, and then go make a huge play?
Well, more than what it tells me is what it tells his teammates.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And that's, I think, and then on that first drive of the second half where we did miss that field goal, he had a run there where he took a big lick. He lowered his shoulder and then took a big lick, and he popped right back up. And the O-line's all sitting there kind of in stun that he got hit hard, and they popped back up. And I think that stuff speaks volumes that we can't quantify as a coach. We like to talk about it and say, oh, he's this and that, but I think that amongst the guys in the locker room, like that stuff says a lot. And that's the important, not the most important stuff. No, the most important stuff is executing and doing his job. And we got a long ways to go. He's not a finished product, and I'm not speaking out of school because he knows that, but
sure.
That secondary stuff speaks volumes in the locker room.
Yeah, shoot, 3 starts in, to his college career here. I mean, all said and done. So there's obviously still a lot of those growth opportunities. Speaking of that, and you mentioned the offensive line, I mean, the fact that that group has played essentially, outside of the Louisville game for what, a half, the same five, right? In the same five positions. Yeah. Where, you look back at last year and it was like, holy smokes, I mean, what a difference a year makes in terms of continuity. And then how does that continuity now help in terms of confidence and execution with that group?
Well, it's starting to manifest itself in, like we talked about, 4 yards per carry. Yeah. How we look at it, 5 yards per carry the week before. It's still below the line, Rhett. It's below the line because you got to cross the finish line on this thing. Yeah. But you can't even come close to crossing the finish line if you're not seeing those things climb up and do those things. So we're fortunate. It's not too often. And again, that's why I knock on wood that because injuries happen up there too. But, a lot of continuity, and that just leads to better execution. And Coach Bostad does a wonderful job with them. And, listen, anybody ever says they want to play O-line, I mean, you got to understand that is not anything but putting your hard hat on every day. There's only one way to make O-linemen, and I say it all the time, and that's to break equipment. So that's how you make them. That's how you make them.
I love it. Well, here's to breaking more equipment with that group. Last one in the game Saturday. Obviously, use Sunday to correct some of the mistakes and try to get things right moving forward. But does it also serve as a proving ground, especially in a game like this, where you say, "Hey, guys, look at what we're capable of when we do what we're supposed to do, when we execute, when we take care of our business." And does that then help paint an easier picture of getting a team back after a loss, as opposed to what you had to go through a week before?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt it does. Because, I mean, you have to see that we all see the big picture, and you got to then get refocused on the small stuff. But, yeah, it does. We had bigger glimpses of, executing at a high level. And, we had small glimpses before. This one was a bigger glimpse. Now, I still call it a glimpse because we didn't cross the finish line. But you have to acknowledge that. If you don't acknowledge that, the kids see it. We see it, acknowledge it, refocus it, and move forward.
There you go. And then lastly here, Coach Carey, a quick thought on Wisconsin. Not sure if you had any opportunity to see that Ohio State game when you guys got back. They got some playmakers out there on that defensive side of the ball for sure. What does that group just kind of look like to you on the surface here?
Well, they're big and rugged and can run and, play really confident. I mean, I've been on them now since last night at 6, and we're getting to know them and getting through this and the initial plans of game planning. But I mean they're good. I mean they're a good defense, and I think that they've hung their hat at Wisconsin for a lot of years on that side of the ball, and
no doubt
their offense running the ball, controlling the game, scoring enough, and so their recipe is not that much different, even though their coach is. And it's for the most part, it's working. I know they had a disappointing loss to Ohio State, but it's working.
Yep. And man, certainly feels like we got some things working here too. And so excited to see that come together on the field on Saturday at noon at the Rock. First of final 4 games, big stretch of this season for IU. Coach Carey, thanks for giving us some time here today. Appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you, man.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Under the Hood with IU Football, presented by your local Central Indiana Ford dealers, a proud sponsor of Indiana football. Visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today. I'm Rhett Lewis. We'll be back with you Thursday for another episode of Indiana Football Live as we get you set for this IU versus Wisconsin matchup at the Rock on Saturday. We'll see you then, everybody.